Right. So, digital journals. Well, all right. What is this nonsense? Am I wearing a bone collar? I said wizard, not what is that? A necromancer? Those symbols don't even mean anything. Oh, this is not what I signed up for. I'll have to get back to the company at once. Well, if I could risk walking across the room and touching the camera and not exploding it. Wait, I can't actually change the settings with... Oh, no. Well, okay, so this is how it's going to be. I'm going to not touch it, and I'm going to ignore the fact that I am a giant spiky necromancer and hope this all works out. Well, this is my personal diary. I'm Shivra, and if you're listening to this, I'm either retired or dead, and I'm gonna hope I'm retired. Um, anyway, got to Seattle, enjoyed it for a while, and had finally gotten some of my more exotic accoutrements set up, a meditation room, a commune room, and turns out that such supplies cost an awful lot of new yen. So I was thinking about getting work. Um, Thankfully, before that nonsense had crossed my brain too deeply, I was contacted by a raven spirit. Now, raven spirits, in case you're not me, are often associated with Native American spiritualists, um, which are generally speaking not the worst you could possibly be. So I followed it to a club, um, which would not let the spirit in, but would take me there. Um, I think the club was called the Spirit something. Oh, look, now it's not working. Thank you, lovely gremlins. Oh, and now it's working again. Well, anyway, um, I have. Where was I? Oh, right, the Spirit Lounge or something. Jazz club, lovely. Good drinks, good food, real food even. I had a little bit of southern food. If I remember right, it was black-eyed peas. Which is sort of a dense bean soaked with a pig bone. Um, it was quite excellent. Anyway, once we got back to see Mrs. Smith and they had peacebound my focus, which never seen that before either. I'm gonna have to learn that one. I had the pleasure of uh, meeting Mrs. Smith, an excellent woman, who had a job for me, and about three other gentlemen that happened to be at the table. An Oni, a troll, and a human who was so dull. Like, there's no good punchline for it. I mean, he was the equivalent of a stainless steel counter, shiny, polished, and utterly devoid of anything interesting. Um, the Oni was, well, packed, dressed like like a soldier. And the troll was interesting. Not a bad chap, kind of quiet, but as far as trolls go, seemed pretty decent. Anyway, Mrs. Smith offered us a job. Apparently, some lady had been kidnapped uh, on the road by a earth spirit, which is fascinating. Um, Spirits can kidnap, but they don't often, at least not of their own volition. So a magical kidnapping was certainly underway. Some time and trouble led us to a club owned by a bunch of ruffian types, a very organized ruffian types. And this particular club was run by a guy who, let's call him Johnny. And as we went in to scope the place out from the astral, I noticed that she was happy, but I should have trusted my gut here. She was happy, but who's happy in a club these days? Um, I mean, unless you're wealthy, but certainly not someone who'd been kidnapped off the freeway by a spirit. So I figured it was drugs or mental programming or BTLs. Probably my first mistake. Um, After really smartly analyzing the situation and deciding that although I would love to make a go at it, subterfuge really is not my thing. I hung back and let the Oni sort of take the talking points. And he managed to talk his way to the room by pretending to be a member of a group known by the name of someone named Jimmy. And Jimmy's men were rough and feared. Apparently, Jimmy kills people for a living. This is the danger of pulling names out of your ass when you're dealing with organized crime. Um, you may very well claim to be a part of someone who you don't want to find you in the future. But because he said he was with Jimmy, they let him in, where he proceeded to threaten and accost Johnny and all of his guards until it was at the point of violence. That's where I kicked in. I managed to give us the tipping point to allow the Oni's uncanny combat ability and the ability to absorb bullets um, be augmented by uh, the fact that no one could see him. So we more quickly got people out. And then back to Mrs. Smith's. Job well done, yes? Job well done. Well, turns out, though, that she wasn't there under drugs. She was in love with Johnny. And that's a problem because, well, Johnny wasn't the one paying us. In fact, she had kidnapped herself in order to evade both her family and her previous profession so she could go to work for Johnny's family in return for being Johnny's bride. So we kidnapped some happy engaged girl from her happy criminal fiance. Yeah, go good guys. Um, Thankfully, when we got back, we found out that Johnny's family, in addition to being slightly miffed, was willing to pay what the other organizations, her family and her former employer, were paying. So, being the stand-up chaps that we are, we sent her back to where we found her and took a lot of Johnny's family's money, and I'm sure none of that will ever come back to bite us at all. I don't think. Surely not. Um, and I pocketed a cool 10,000 yen. So, lesson, trust your instinct. Two, in a sense, believe in the power of love. I mean, if Lakshmi stands for one thing, it's that love comes in all types of cycles. And then, three, get paid. I don't think the job went smooth enough that we'll be getting another job from Mrs. Smith, but hey, I'm going to be able to pay my rent this month, so on to the next adventure.